From Miller Waldrop Studios, this is Campus Live.
What's up, Campus Live fans? It's Lane here in the Miller Waldrop Studios today to bring you another edition of the Guns Blazin podcast. Jett, it's great to have you back here in studio
What's up,
today.
man?
Yeah, how have you been, Jett?
Doing good. There were some good games, since we last talked. So let's get into it, man.
Yeah, it's been a jam-packed week. We had the national championship game on Monday. We got the NFL conference championships this weekend. Obviously, college basketball in the thick of things in their season right now. So we have a ton to discuss here today. But first, I just wanted to thank everyone for tuning in every single week, and we ask that you just make sure to like all of our videos and follow and subscribe to all of our social media platforms wherever you're seeing our content at either the Guns Blazin podcast or at Campus Live TTU. And as well as thanking our sponsors for the Guns Blazin podcast with Roof Master of Lubbock. Fans, with this weekend's impending winter storm, if you need any roof repairs before or afterwards, make sure to check out Roof Masters of Lubbock. And we also would like to thank our sponsors with JSI Services and the Exceptional Community Hospital here in Lubbock. Jett, we're going to first recap this national championship game, 27-21. It was one of the best championship games I think anyone's ever seen, especially just the way it ended. It was a storybook ending for really a storybook season for the Indiana Hoosiers. It was absolute heartbreak for Miami losing that game at home and the way they lost it. It was an absolute war in the trenches like we thought it was going to be. Jett, what was some of your first initial thoughts whenever that game really ended and just how it played out?
The way it played out, I kind of felt like Miami was going to come back at the end and kind of finish off that Cinderella run they've been having. Because I kind of felt like that's how a lot of their games have gone through this playoff run, is them kind of dogging it out and just fighting to the end. And it really came down to that they were driving there at the end, and it really came to just like that underthrown ball slightly, and if he just puts it a little more over the top, maybe he gets it there and they score, and end up going on top. But then also the run by Fernando Mendoza, that was great. And so I think the Raiders, probably settled in on their number one pick after seeing that run, because I think it was 4th and 4, right? When he ran in. And there was a ton of Indiana fans there. So I thought it was going to be like, massive, Miami overhaul, but like not the case at all. Indiana fans, they travel well, but it was a great game.
Yeah, the Indiana fans showed up and showed out really for every single playoff game. This is really their first time experiencing anything like this, kind of in a similar way to Texas Tech fans, how we traveled extremely well to the Big 12 championship and to the playoff game in Miami. When I was there, it was complete. There was probably 10% Oregon fans,
really?
Oregon fans, compared to all the Texas Tech fans. So kind of in a similar way, those fan bases, the way that the playoff works now, being 12 teams, it's really cool for some of these fan bases that never have gotten to experience a college football season like this. And obviously, Indiana finishes 16-0. Man, it was such a great game. Both lines. Me and Logan had discussed how big of a war it was going to be in the trenches on both sides, the offensive and defensive lines. You saw those guys after the game; they were all bloodied up, their hands were all cut up and everything. And really, I thought that when Indiana false started at the end of the game, I thought that, man, maybe this is I think you kind of said it too. Maybe it's kind of destined for Miami to win this championship, being at home and a weird false start. They only needed
crazy false start.
They only needed like 6 more feet to end the game, and then it, unfortunately for them, they move back and have to settle for a field goal. They give Miami a chance to go down and win by 1 point. Man, if Miami would have went down and won like that, Indiana fans would have been heartbroken. That would have been an all-time heartbreaker. But, really starting the game off, Indiana, they obviously at halftime had that 10-0 lead, and Miami had a chance to get some points. They doinked that field goal. I think if they would have had that field goal in the end, they would have they were basically in field goal range when Carson Beck threw that interception. Jett, what was kind of some of your thoughts on how that played out with the missed field goal and how, at the end Carson Beck ended up throwing that interception?
Like, obviously something like that, changes all the decision making. But I don't know. Maybe he still ends up taking a few shots there at the end, just because how's the math work at that point? Would they be playing for the tie?
They would.
Or if the field goal
if they would have
put them up,
if they would have had that field goal, they could have played for the tie.
Played for the tie, right? Yeah,
they
okay.
could have won. You know,
Maybe they still take a few shots, they're late, just to see, and maybe Indiana makes a play too. But yeah, it definitely does change a lot of things, because then they could have decided to just set it up, kick it, and go to overtime, and see what happens there. But yeah, things like that are just so huge in big games where everything matters.
Yeah. And, really Miami struggled really badly to move the ball, really until Mark Fletcher Jr. Had that 60-yard touchdown run in the third quarter, cutting Indiana's lead 10-7. And then obviously Indiana, they respond. They go right down the field. They extend it to 17-7. And really it started to go back and forth at this point. Miami answers. Then Indiana goes down and answers, like you said earlier. Fernando Mendoza, that play, one of the best all-time plays in the history of college football. It was so insane. I mean, him first, that call, even calling a quarterback draw, doing that, he makes the juke and then, stays up from the first hit, dives in the end zone. It was like a movie almost. What a play by him. It kind of defines their whole season and his whole season being the Heisman Trophy winner. And then obviously, right after then, though, Miami answers. They go down, score a touchdown quick. Malachi Toney.
Malachi Toney, dude. Yeah.
And then obviously, Indiana goes down, kicks the field goal, and then Carson Beck throws the interception at the end. Total yardage-wise, it was basically the same. Miami 342 to Indiana's 317. So Miami actually outgained Indiana in the end. But
at one point, they were exactly the same, and I was like, I don't like when games do that.
It was so close, and unfortunately for Miami and their fans, Carson Beck threw that interception at the end. But can't say enough about Indiana and their season. Obviously, the first team ever to go 16-0. The way that they won games this year, obviously this game was, I would say, besides the Ohio State one, their closest game all year. But really blowing everyone else out this year,
Yeah.
I think they'll probably go down as one of the top 10 to 15 best teams that have ever played. Kurt Signetti, what he's done for that program, they were a doormat for 100 years, basically. They even said it on the broadcast, 100 years of jubilation that had it really exploded in the crowd when all their fans, they were going crazy and everything.
Yeah.
So, Jett, what'd you think really about Indiana's season and just how they went on this run to win the championship?
Well, I saw this one post, and it was like, a team's good whenever people start mentioning 2019 LSU, and that's the conversations people are having about them. They were just that good all year long, and like you said, maybe not that high up there, but they're definitely going to go down like top 10, 15, teams of all time. And when people look back, the 16-0 is that's a crazy feat, and then especially when they had a few chances to lose for sure. Not even like Ohio State, when they played Penn State with the crazy catch, that could have been a blemish right there too. So just magical season for them. And they're not the losingest program anymore. I think it's Northwestern. So I think these past 2 years have pushed them past that. Being the doormat, as you say. So it was pretty special to see what they did.
Yeah, and they. I don't think that they're going to go anywhere anytime soon. They actually have the second-ranked portal class behind us at Texas Tech. Josh Hoover transferring in from TCU. All the guys, Nick Marsh, wide receiver from Michigan State, a bunch of different guys they got on the offensive line and defense. And then, like you just said, Mark Cuban, all those big donors. Now they're really going to want to continue to really continue their success because, Indiana has always been known as a basketball school.
Yeah.
And, their basketball team really hasn't performed that very, very good in the past few decades. So maybe Indiana, you start to see them turn more into a football school with where their donor money is heading. But as we kind of, wrap up the season, unfortunately, college football is my favorite sport. I think, really all of us here at Campus Live is probably our favorite sport. But, we have a lot to look forward to for next season. Texas Tech only got done playing about 2.5 weeks ago, and we never have experienced that ever in Lubbock. And, I think looking ahead to next season, Texas Tech, they were ranked in the way too early poll by a few different journalists, number 7th going into next year. And then actually we finished number 7 in the AP poll for the first time in program history. Now, once again, with, according to On3, the best transfer portal class in the whole entire country. Texas Tech should be primed and ready, obviously, to win the Big 12 again, Jett, but should hopefully make a deeper run in the college football playoffs. What are some of your thoughts as we head into the offseason?
Yeah, I think the same thing. I'm excited to see the new look of this, of this offense, with the new QB coming in. I mean, we've had Barron for the past 3 years, even though there's been other QBs maybe throughout there, because of injuries and stuff. So it's going to be a new look for our offense and a new type of play style out of Sorsby. And then, I mean, if you look at BYU is going to come back again just like they were, and they're going to be good again. So I don't even think we have them on our schedule though, do we?
No,
we don't play them next year. Okay, well, yeah, the schedule looks pretty acceptable for us, I think so.
Yeah, the schedule actually came out today, and we don't have to play BYU or Utah.
There you go.
Those are our two toughest games.
We got Arizona State though, our rival, basically.
We do. And we get them in Lubbock this time
there
too.
There you go. Yeah.
And but we don't have to play BYU. I think it's kind of safe to say for next year the two easily best teams are going to be Tech and BYU. I think that might be how it goes moving forward, especially with Kyle Whittingham leaving Utah. Even though Kenny Dillingham is still at Arizona State, they're going to continue to be probably third.
Yeah, they'll be competitive.
Yeah, they'll be competitive. I wouldn't be shocked if they won, nine games next year or something like that. Obviously, way too early to make those predictions, but yeah, like Jett said, big transfer portal class led by Brennan Sorsby. We did have a few more commits since the last time we were on. We were sitting at 20 commits. Recently, we just got offensive guard from Louisville, Jordan Church, kind of shore up that room. We do have two guys graduating with Will Jados and Davion Carter. So it will be interesting to see how they roll with the guard depth next year. It's kind of set in stone at center and both tackle spots. Both of them, or all three of them, returning with Sheridan Wilson, Howard Sampson, and Jacob Ponton. Jacob Ponton named recently freshman All-American. So got a bunch of guys coming back in that room. Should be interesting to see. And then obviously they just added another edge in Damon Mathis from Kent State. He was committed to Virginia. We were in the Damon Wilson sweepstakes. I think it's safe to say that's probably off the table now. Mm-hmm. Seems like he's going to go to Miami, Jett. We might add in another punter. That would put us up to 21 commits. Jett, what do you think now that this portal class really is complete? What's just some of your final thoughts on it?
I was just, what I would take from it is that they really beefed up that defensive line. Yeah. I feel like there was just I thought they'd plug a few pieces or so, but I feel like they got a plethora of different players that they could plug in there. So it's gonna be, I bet those training camps are gonna be fun. Those spring practices and stuff, because those guys are gonna be competing. But yeah, so the defensive line is gonna be great again.
Yeah, maybe returning I don't even know if say maybe, especially adding in Jordan Church, probably a top 5 returning offensive line.
He's big, right?
Yeah, and one of the best run blockers in the country. Should be easily one of the best offenses in the country. Definitely a top 5 returning offensive line. And then, like you just said, the defensive line, adding all those guys in, having a few guys return too. A.J. Holmes is going to come back. Yeah. Maybe Skylar Go-Howard, maybe depending on the 5-for-5 ruling, and if he gets granted an extra year, he would be able to come back as well. And then obviously all the guys at edge that we return, and then linebacker we return John Curry and Ben Roberts, add in Austin Romaine. Seems kind of like obviously you can't say perfect. Jacob Rodriguez had one of the best seasons ever, but Austin Romaine's a great linebacker. Yeah. He's going to come in, fill those shoes. And then at secondary, Bryce Pollock returns. We won't have Cole Wisniewski for next year, but Peyton Morgan, he's a young guy that shows a lot of promise, and then Brennan Jordan's coming back as well. This whole team, it kind of seems like they have the nucleus to definitely make even a further run next year. Jett, should be really exciting.
Yeah, they're gonna have that big game experience too, like you said, with all those returning players. Where if they do get back to Big 12 championship CFP, hopefully they're able to kind of show those other guys maybe where they went wrong, in this past season too. But yeah, it's gonna be good.
Yeah, and as we kind of move on from college football season, we'll obviously be talking more about college basketball, especially as that gets ramped up towards March Madness. And we had a big game last night. Had our live show out at Golf Suites covering the Texas Tech Baylor game. And then on Saturday, we had a huge win over BYU. We discussed it last night, but we'll talk about it again today. one of the best games of the year in college basketball, in my opinion. Really, we talked about it last night. The final score didn't indicate how close this game really was. 84-71, Texas Tech wins over BYU. It was 32-31 at halftime,
Yeah.
really close.
It was good basketball.
Oh, yeah, and then in the second half, we started off 50-45, and then BYU goes on a 16-2 run.
Oh.
Tech goes cold, gave up a lot of open shots. Richie Saunders hit a few threes. Rob Wright, he ended up with 28 points, really kind of carried them all night. And you thought, man, is this where the BYU depth kind of gets how thin our rotation is? But they didn't. Our team, Grant McCasland, what did we respond with? A 32-10 run.
Yeah.
And Lawan Watts, what a three-pointer he hit to really stop the bleeding. And then it kind of snowballed from there, Jett. What was kind of some of your thoughts on how that game ended and really the game overall?
I really enjoyed Grant McCaslin's take on it whenever he said that when they went down that they just looked like they were waiting for the game to be over. They were like, oh, there's still 12 minutes left. But then they had the under 12 timeout, and then he said he called a timeout immediately after that. So he gave them like a big rest. And after that rest was kind of when they started going back on that run and got started defending better too. So I think it's just good coaching on his part too to do things like that, to take advantage of the media timeout and then immediately call one of yours just to let your players get a rest, especially when you're playing them 40 minutes. Yeah, that's all you're playing. Yeah. So it's like good on him for being able to see that and do what he could to try to help with their legs or whatever needed to be done, because after that they turned it back on.
Yeah, and of course, led by our two NBA players and JT Toppin and Christian Anderson. You even saw it last night too, but what these guys can continue to do. JT had 27, 13, and 2 steals and a block. Huge one on AJ DeBansa at the end of the game. And then Christian Anderson, he had 22 points, 7 assists, and 3 rebounds. They are the best duo in the country, Jett. And as long as we have these two guys on the offensive end, there is no doubt in my mind we are going to be in every single game. Mm-hmm. And Jett, it seems like that they're really starting to gel even more. They already had that huge chemistry, but now they are really playing well, and you're seeing it mesh in too with the role guys. Even though technically it's really been a 6-man rotation, especially last night, they just continue to all play well. And I got to shout out Donovan Atwell again and his defense on AJ DeBansa, holding him to 6 of 17. He didn't shoot well from 3 at all, and he only had 3 rebounds. Mm-hmm. Completely locked him up, and obviously AJ, potential #1 overall pick. What were some of your thoughts on how Donovan played and how he defended AJ?
Yeah, I think because I expected a lot more out of him, especially to start the game. He hit a little turnaround jumper on him and drew the foul and everything, and it kind of looked like I felt like everyone in the stands was like, oh, like there he is, this is what we're gonna be seeing the rest of the game. And no, I think he learned from that right away and started guarding him more straight up. Was a lot more careful and just made sure to be more of just a presence, forcing tough shots. And then like you said, I mean, what was he 1 for 5 from 3? So obviously not his best game from 3. Like we saw, he can do a lot better. And but I mean, the defensive effort was there.
Yeah, we really defended BYU well, and you're starting to see this defense really come together. We actually just checked, on KenPom. Actually, we are now in the top 30 in defensive rating. For a team that started off in the hundreds at the beginning of the year, to see us jump that far, we have been in the top 10 in the past basically 2 months for our defensive rating, and obviously we have one of the best offenses in the country. That's a recipe for success. And, we we defended BYU extremely well, holding them to about 25% from 3 was awesome to see. And then obviously last night, as we kind of transition into the Baylor game, it was kind of the same thing, except for a more explosive offensive night, 92-73. Thought it was going to be a little bit closer. This was one of the best three-point shooting performances I've ever seen, Jett.
Yeah.
what was like some of your thoughts whenever this game was happening?
It was the 17-18 Warriors out there, dude. Yeah. They were just shooting from the parking lot, as Stephen A would say. That was great. And me and you were talking. I was like, I can't remember the last time we've just handled Baylor like that. You know, Baylor's always a competitive game, or they end up maybe pulling away from us a little bit. And so it was pretty crazy to see. I mean, just a logo alone, us doing that to Baylor. But it was a great. Christian Anderson is just so good, and he can get it from anywhere he wants, from the 3-point line. And then Atwell is he's just a sniper also.
Yeah, this is one of the crazy stats you'll ever see. We shot 63% from three last night. We shot higher from the 3-point line from the field in general. We shot 60% from field goal wise, which is amazing also, but 63% in a full game. That I don't know if I've ever seen that in a college basketball game.
Do you know how many they took?
I'm not sure. I mean, I know we made 17 of them, so I mean
at least 40.
Yeah,
right? No.
So I think 30,
something like that. Whatever the math is on that.
Yeah, whatever the math is on that. We tied program record making 17 in the game, and then Donovan Atwell and Christian, they combined for 15 of those. Tyree Bryan hit a three as well, but Christian ending up with 26 points, 6 assists, 3 rebounds. Donovan he had his 7 threes. And then obviously JT, maybe the quietest and most efficient, 22 points ever.
Yeah.
I mean, he only had 3 rebounds.
He didn't hit 5 threes?
No, not like the past 2 games where he was hitting all those threes. But it was, he was just really efficient. He knew he didn't have to do too much on the offensive end. Still, he's so good putting up 22 points. And then Lawan Watts had 13 points as well. And then Tyree Bryan really played some good minutes off the bench. We talked about it at length pregame, needing some more guys to come spell these guys, because playing five-man rotation, it's just, for long-term success, it's really not the best. He came in, had 28 minutes, and scored 7 points off the bench. That's exactly what you need from a guy like him off the bench. Don't need to score too many points. You just need to come in, be effective, especially on the defensive side, get some good rebounds. What was some of your thoughts on how Tyree Bryan played last night, Jett?
Yeah, I mean, every minute is valuable. I feel like whenever you're in a position like him. So it was kind of like if you flash back to the Duke game when Nolan Groves had to kind of hop on and a boozer, for a little while, and it was one of those where it was like just throw your hands up, and just quote unquote do your best, I guess, And then these guys make the most of it when they do get their opportunities. So you could tell they were brought to Texas Tech for a reason. They're not on the bench because they don't know how to play.
They just have maybe the most talented starting 5 in the country.
For real.
Grant doesn't like taking those guys off the court, but
I don't blame him.
It was good to see though. JT only played 33 minutes, but that's better than playing 40 minutes.
Only, that should be like a normal. That's like a normal full timer right there.
Yeah, and Lawan, Jalen Petty, Donovan, they only played about 30 minutes, so that was good to see. That is a great difference, and for them, getting that rest for one of the games of the year this Saturday, playing against Houston. Obviously, last time we all know 69-65, already one of the best games of the year. We talked about it last time on the podcast. We got Kingston Fleming at the end. We had led all game long, and then really it wasn't until the last 3 minutes where Houston went on a 15-4 run, grabbed a big lead, and it was curtains at that point. We talked about it at length, though. We thought that we really lost kind of our legs. We played so hard on the defensive end. That was probably our best defensive effort by far all year, holding Houston to really, only 69 points, and they were in the 50s for the majority
before that little burst there at the end. They were holding them.
We had been playing such good defense, and with how short our bench is, I think that's really why you saw us kind of tire out. Houston has a deeper team, and you saw them hit their amazing shots. They had more rebounds. Probably just they had more energy at the end, but it was such a great game. And I think this one on Saturday could be even better. Tip off at 5:30, Jett. College game day's coming to town. We might have some inclement weather here in Lubbock and really the whole state of Texas. They're saying it might even be blizzard-like conditions here in Lubbock on Saturday with wind chills in the negative 15 to 20s. Ice and snow. It could be negatively affecting, not hopefully, but our amazing crowd at the USA. Yeah. You hope that doesn't happen, Jett, but what are kind of some of your initial thoughts on how that might go?
Yeah, because, my first point was going to be like, I think the crowd alone is, worth a couple points. And if you get into a game like it was, at Houston, I feel like the crowd could easily help us in that situation to not maybe get Kingston Fleming right there, But yeah, the weather's gonna be bad, so I don't know. We might see. But Tech fans are pretty wild, so I don't know. You might see a smaller crowd than you're probably expecting. Probably not like filled to the rafters, but I bet it's gonna be a solid crowd, and it's gonna be loud on TV.
Yeah.
It's gonna be loud in there. They're gonna be having the music cranked up all the way, so they're gonna, and then I'm sure they'll do it's a blackout, so they're gonna do the t-shirts. It's gonna be crazy in there. And the college game day hasn't been here in what, 7 years, I think 8 years, something like that. So it's gonna be a cool day.
You'll definitely see people walk to that game. I
Yeah.
mean,
There's a tent out there already, and I was like,
and
I don't know if you needed.
I don't know if you would even survive in that
Yeah,
tent with how cold they think it's going to get here. But we saw how electric the crowd was versus BYU.
Yeah.
Definitely need that same energy, maybe even higher against Houston. Last year's crowd was insane.
Yeah.
Obviously, we lost a very close game. That was a heartbreaking
Patrick
loss.
Mahomes in the house.
Yeah, Mahomes was in the house, and unfortunately now with this weather, maybe he would have been planning on coming back for the game.
Yeah,
You wonder how it's all going to play out. Hopefully, if the lower bowl's sold out, that should be
That's fine, yeah.
that should be good enough to still have an amazing crowd. But if you're in town, man, if you have to walk to this game, come out and
try to
come
get
support.
there.
Man, this is a huge game for us. And
the game day's at 10. Game day's at 10.
Game day at 9 or 10 or something.
Something like that.
Something like that. But yeah, I mean, now kind of moving really into the nitty gritty of the actual game. Obviously, Houston 17-1. They've won 11 straight games. All they've had is a close loss to Tennessee, and that was really early on in the year. You're really starting to see Kingston Flemings and Chris Sinak Jr. start to take on massive roles in this team. This past game, they both Kingston actually had over 20 points, and Chris had 18, and he had a double-double. Man, this is one of the best teams, obviously, in all of college basketball. They had Milo Suzanne return, JoJo Tugler return, and Emmanuel Sharp return. That already was the best returning cast in all of college basketball from a team that should have won the national championship last year. Now you are really seeing the true freshmen, the 5 stars, mesh with those returning guys, Jett. What are some of your thoughts on this Houston team and how big of a matchup this is going to be versus Texas Tech?
I feel like not to hype us up, but I feel like Houston looks forward to the Tech game.
Yeah.
Something about that matchup between the coaches and then just the players. I think they're definitely looking forward to this one. They don't want to drop this one, even though they got us last time. I don't think they're going to be happy splitting. So they're going to come in, and you can expect the same type of performance out of Sinak and Flemings, but and then Milos, right? Uzan, I was like, he's one of those names where he's just I never like hearing his name. But I think they're going to come in determined. They're going to want to play party pooper in Lubbock.
Yeah, Kingston, he's a guy that, Texas Tech, they really wanted. And after he committed to Houston, obviously, we've discussed this before, moving on to Jalen Petty, which Jalen's been amazing this year too as a freshman. But, Kingston's a guy projected right now as a potential top 5 pick in the NBA draft for this year. He's 6'4", averages about 15 points per game, 5 assists, 3 rebounds, and 2 steals. And he is a guy that is basically averaging 50, 40, and 80. So 50% from the field, almost 40% from 3, and 80% from the free throw line. So he's very efficient. And then that's not even including the 2 high-scoring guards next to him with Milo Suzanne and Emmanuel Sharp. And Sharp's actually the leading scorer on the team, averaging 16 points per game. They rebound the heck out of the ball. Obviously, they are the defensive juggernaut in college basketball. They are every year under Kelvin Sampson. And, Chris Sinak averaging 8 rebounds per game, and then JoJo Tugler, the reigning Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. They just have so many guys that can just attack you in different ways. But we are really familiar with this team, Jett. We beat them last year on the road without JT and Coach McCaslin. This might be the best new rivalry in all of college basketball, Jett. And for Texas Tech, we're hot of late, winning the last 8 of 9 of our games. Our only loss at Houston, a game that I think we look back at, we should have won that game. What are kind of some of your thoughts on how Texas Tech's been playing recently, and really this matchup as we look forward to it?
Well, just like we were talking about earlier, I think the defense is just, in these short couple weeks, I think it's just significantly better. And I think they're growing confident by the game, and then especially whenever they're getting, splendid return on the offense, because of their defending and, wreaking havoc, causing turnovers and stealing it. I think you're gonna hopefully see an even better defensive performance. Like you said, the first one against Houston wasn't like terrible. It was just
Yeah.
at the end it kind of got away from us, and it was probably fatigue. Who knows? What it was. Maybe it was just straight up, Kingston Flemings. But yeah, hopefully they come locked in and defend very well.
Yeah, in being ranked in the top 10, I discussed it earlier, and basically the past 7 weeks in defensive efficiency in the whole entire country. And we've been shooting the ball from the three-point line at an elite clip. You're even seeing guys, we discussed it earlier, like Toppin, not last night, but, the 2 games before, hitting 3 threes in both games. You add that into the mix already to an elite offense, you're going to see this team go on a huge run in March.
Yeah.
And really, like I said earlier, the role players like Donovan, he had 21 points last night versus Baylor. And then obviously, like I said earlier, guarding AJ, becoming an extremely good two-way player. And then Lawan Watts has really become a really good two-way player as well. You're starting to see his offensive game start to come back too. And then obviously with really talented freshmen and Jalen Petty. But I think, for this game, like I said earlier, you're going to need a guy like Tyree Bryan to come off the bench and spell some of our guards for a little bit, just to let them get their legs under themselves so that they are rested for the end of this game, where they have that energy to still play 100% on the defensive end. Because like he did last night, he had 28 minutes last night. That would be huge for Texas Tech if he can play something similar against Houston, because Houston's going to double-team Christian every single time like they did in that first matchup. As soon as he crosses half court, you're going to see that. And whenever they get those high on-ball screens, wherever they're coming, you're going to see them double-team.
Yeah.
Every single time. And, I think that this might be a big game for a guy like Jalen Petty again. You saw him have a huge game in the first matchup. He had 20 points. I think some of the guys and the role players like this, they're not going to let Christian get off his 25 points that we've seen from him basically over the last couple of games. Jett, what are some ways that you think that the Tech's offense can continue to be efficient from the double team, and how they can continue to score, especially from the three-point line?
I felt like the last game, when they were doubling, he just wasn't seeing either the open man quick enough, or it wasn't getting rid of it before they trapped him. So I'm like, if they could just keep that ball moving and just stay away from that that double team, I think they can find more scores. It's not like Christian has to do it all himself. They're also talented on the offensive side. It's just a matter of finding them in space and just getting the ball to them before that defense smothers you.
Yeah, and hopefully, probably not, but hopefully Luke Bangboye and Josiah Mosley could come back for this game. Just one of them, come. We've talked about it last night. Just come play 10 to 15 minutes and just put another body on those guys, especially Luke. Yeah. He would be such a big addition against Chris Sinak and JoJo Tugler. But that'll kind of move us into our injury report segment for this Houston game. Fans, once again, it's time for this week's injury report presented by the Exceptional Community Hospital here in Lubbock. And once again, we just want to take a moment to recognize the Exceptional Community Hospital as a proud sponsor of Campus Live and the Guns Blazin podcast. And be sure to visit their 24/7 state-of-the-art hospital and ER located at 6401 Spur 327 here in Lubbock. They accept all insurances and have short ER wait times. And once again, the Exceptional Community Hospital is a proud sponsor of this week's injury report on the Guns Blazin podcast. Like we just said, Luke Bangboye, Josiah Mosley, and then Latrell Hoover, he's going to redshirt, and then Jazz Henderson recently popped up. But those are two guys that really weren't going to see many minutes this year anyway. But all two of those guys that are contributors still hurt. We think Bangboye is going to be soon, and Mosley. I mean, and Mosley pregame was throwing down windmills and stuff. So
you would think he's close.
Yeah, you would think he's close, and maybe if we could get one of these guys back, it'd be huge for the rebounding aspect of this game. They are our two biggest players. But not only that, but for a deep run in March, Jett, what are kind of some of your thoughts on how Luke Bangboye or Josiah Mosley could be an addition to this team?
Yeah, we just need some size,
Yeah.
And then even because with JT having to be the biggest person on the court all the time, I feel like even if you finally get Bangboye back, or somebody to fill that void, like just that way you can just give him a few minutes, just some rest, and but Kinsock still. He's still all right? Yeah, he's still coming back. So maybe every game he'll get a little more comfortable out there. And who knows, maybe he can start impacting, some of these future games pretty soon.
Yeah, He's been playing, a few minutes here and there, letting JT get a quick rest. I think you might see that again in this game, especially if Bangboye can't play. And I think that, will kind of tie into how different ways we win this game, and which leads us into our Paving the Way to Victory segment. Fans, JSI Services is a proud partner of Campus Live. Be sure to visit their website at jsiservicesllc.com to learn about their asphalt/paving services, earth and dirt works, concrete and gutter paving, crack fill, seal coating, and stripping services. Once again, thank you to JSI Services for their proud support of Campus Live and the Guns Blazin podcast. First, Jett, I have 2 keys in this game. We've been discussing at it at length. It's defeating the Houston double team, keeping the offense in the same rhythm and not letting it create turnovers. Obviously, easier said than done. But, and there's no doubt in my mind, Grant will have a great plan to counteract that first game strategy from Houston. And then secondly, it's just keeping up the same physicality and defense and the rebounding that we saw in the first matchup. What are some of your keys to victory for this game?
I'd say one is, just don't rely on our as we say, our 2 NBA players.
Yeah.
As soon as, something goes wrong with them, let's see somebody else step up and, ask for the ball, and then take it upon themselves, rather than just allowing it to happen. Because sometimes, they can kind of take a backseat because you can assume that they're gonna get it going, but let's see one of these other role players, take the burden off of their shoulders if that's all Houston is gonna be, trying to go after.
Yeah, and I think that we do win this game, Jett. As we move on into our predictions, I think that we win this game. I think our offense plays better than we did in the first time, and I think we still show that same defensive intensity. It's a home game. Even though the crowd may not be completely full, there's going to be people definitely still show up to that game. Rain, sleet, or snow, Red Raiders, they're going to show up in droves. And I think that as we predict this game, I think that it's going to be back and forth just like last time. I think we respond better to the defensive strategy that Houston showed us. I think this is the game of the year in the Big 12, and I think we win a very close one, 74-72, Jett.
Yeah, I like that. I also think it's going to be very close. It's going to be maybe tied, 1-point game at time. They're going to come out and they're going to keep just trading shots. That score like that, I think I like Tech 75-69. Pull away. With the free throws.
Yeah.
Like that.
And then there are 2 other games that are pretty big games. These are the other 2 ranked matchups that are going on around the country. 2 teams that we've played before, Illinois and Purdue. They're going to be playing each other. It should be a huge game, one of the biggest games of the year in the Big Ten. Purdue now coming off that loss last night to UCLA.
Yeah.
We talked about it last night. That was Jett's only loss for Jett. Yeah.
On Jett's bet, so we're not perfect. Bad 75%.
Hey, 75%. You're doing great.
Not bad.
But now with Illinois being out, they don't have Kylan Boswell for basically like a month, they think. He might be in Illinois' best player, and I think that changes this game massively. I think Illinois is still a very good team. They're very deep. Obviously, we experienced them in Champaign at the very beginning of this season. But to go on the road versus Purdue, another team that we played, I think without Kylan Boswell, it's just going to be too much for them. Obviously, too, now with Purdue losing, they're going to be really focused for this game. I think Purdue is just going to be too much to handle for Illinois. Obviously, these are 2 of the best teams in the country. I think it will be close in the first half, but I think Purdue just has too much offense in the end. I think Purdue went 78-71 over Illinois.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a competitive one, but like you said, after coming off a loss like that and being at home, I think Purdue's going to win that one by a couple scores too. Maybe I tend to agree with your score right there.
Yeah. Another ranked game, North Carolina going on the road to Virginia. Virginia 16-2 this year. Kind of, Virginia obviously broke our hearts back in 2019. They won their national championship then. But really since then they haven't done too much in March. Not too many deep runs.
Their coach, Bennett, is he still there?
No, he retired.
Okay,
He retired a few years ago. So that's kind of when they he didn't want to deal with the NIL stuff, and you saw him retire. But they are 16-2 this year. They're led by Malik Thomas. They got DeRitter. He's their leading scorer. And North Carolina, man, they really have struggled as of late, losing to Cal, Stanford, and SMU. And with the 5 stars that they bring in every year, they did. And Hubert Davis already on the hot seat. If he loses this game up at Virginia, it might be scorching hot, especially with how talented of a freshman Caleb Wilson is for North Carolina. He might be one of their most talented freshmen that's ever came through their program. I think Virginia, the way that they have been rolling their momentum and the way that North Carolina's season seems to be trending, I think Virginia wins a close one at home, 72-68 over North Carolina.
Yeah, I didn't know North Carolina was going through it like that. I didn't know that. Yeah, I would say with all that going on, I think Virginia's gonna go ahead and keep up their winning ways and get the win right there.
Yeah, and North Carolina, they just seem to kind of, for some reason, under Hubert Davis, even though they get a bunch of 5 stars, they just kind of struggle. And even though they did go on that huge deep run a few seasons ago, really since then, and they were a really high seed in that tournament too. They just kind of all put it together at the right time. But yeah, I just think I think Hubert Davis might be heading down a path where he finds himself without a job. But also, for the women, the Lady Raiders, they got a big game tonight on the road at BYU. Obviously had a tough loss at home versus Kansas State. But I think tonight they bounce back. I think that, that they might have needed that, feeling themselves a little bit at 19-0. I think tonight they go on the road, get some good scoring from Bristow, from all their different players. I think that tonight they get a huge win on the road at BYU, 68-64.
Yeah, I think they're gonna win this one too. I want to say they're gonna pull away a little bit more, maybe even like 71-60 or something like that, But yeah, I think they probably have a bad taste in their mouth. They had the lead late,
I know,
in that game, and then you look up with under a minute, and it was 61-57, and they just couldn't come back from that 4-point deficit. So close loss. It was a tough loss, but I think they're gonna bounce back.
Yeah, hopefully you'll see Bailey Maupin and have her bounce back as well. They kind of struggled on the offensive end versus Kansas State, but should be exciting to see. And make sure you all tune in on ESPN Plus tonight. But as we move on to our last segment, the NFL playoffs are tonight, or not tonight. Excuse me, this weekend. Yeah, not tonight. This weekend, Patriots at the Broncos.
Man, what could have been?
I know. Bo Nix being hurt, this would have been such a great game. But I do think with the Patriots traveling to Denver, no Bo Nix, obviously it sucks, but I think with Denver's defense, they can keep this game close. Sean Payton, he thinks that, he has 2 starting level caliber guys. Bo Nix, obviously, one of the best quarterbacks in the league this year. Yeah. But Jarrett Stidham, he is a guy that started before, and I think that's why you're kind of seeing this line still be at only 5.5 in favor of New England. Going on the road versus they are a really young team. New England has a bunch of rookies everywhere. Denver is a more experienced team in more areas, even though they are a young team as well. But I think that New England just has a little bit too much offense for Denver in this game. I think that it is a really interesting matchup. You saw New England struggle a lot last week versus Houston's defense. Obviously, Houston, the best defense in the league. Unreal. They had 3 turnovers, but, it was snowing in that game. There were some fumbles and stuff, but the Patriots' defense really won them that game, creating 5 turnovers on C.J. Stroud. And if Denver were to create similar issues for New England's offense, I could see a scenario where Denver just pounds the rock all game with their running backs, with R.J. Harvey, and kind of choose some clock. But I think that I'm going to trust Drake May in this game. Whenever we were discussing who's going to go to the Super Bowl, basically like a month ago on a few episodes ago when we were discussing, I said the Patriots and Rams. I'm going to stick with that. I think it's a low-scoring game led by the defenses, but I think New England scores a touchdown late to give them a cover. Give me New England 20-10 over Denver.
Yeah, I like what you said about the Patriots defense because I thought this, I know everyone likes to kind of give C.J. Stroud a hard time, but that was as much the Patriots defense as it was just him, not having a good game. And I don't know. I kind of see the Patriots, defense smothering Jarrett Stidham, him not getting much going early, and I think Drake May might actually score in the first couple of possessions and I kind of feel like the Patriots might end up winning this one like 28-10 or 31 to 13. A couple scores like that. You know,
sure.
I think the Patriots end up winning this one handily.
Yeah, I think you could see kind of like you just said in the first half where it's like tied like 10-10 at halftime or something like that, and then you see New England just Denver's defense on the field for so much in the game, too long, where they just start to give up those long drives, and then New England eventually moves on to the Super Bowl. And then obviously we have that game, and then what could be part 2 of the best regular season game of the season, Rams at the Seahawks. My Super Bowl champion and the Rams.
Yeah.
I predicted them to win at the beginning of the playoffs. Once again, this was the best game in the regular season. Seattle had a huge comeback, down 16 in the fourth quarter. Rashid Shaheed had that crazy punt return. And then Sam Darnold, who really, they've been struggling all game on offense. It flipped that game on its head. All the momentum flipped to Seattle, and then obviously in overtime they won on that crazy 2-point conversion. I think this is going to be a classic. I think this is going to be a very mirroring game as we saw in the first matchup. It's going to be, I think, the game of the playoffs. Of course, I say that, and then Seattle blow them out or the Rams.
No, gonna be awful.
I think that this game is going to be a classic. These playoffs have been, every game's been close besides the Seattle game, really. I think the Rams defense, they clutched up against Chicago. Caleb Williams made the play of the year. And then obviously they were about to go win, and then he throws that pick. And then Matthew Stafford, insane throw to Devontae Adams, leads them down to kick the field goal and win. Obviously Seattle, they destroyed San Francisco 41-6. I really didn't see that coming, Jett. We'd predicted that to be a really close game. But Seattle just may be that good.
That was shocking.
Yeah, their defense played amazing. I think some of those injuries might have just started to finally hit San Francisco in that game.
Yeah, when they threw the graphics up and they were showing all the injuries, it was like, I don't even know how they got this far,
Yeah. And Seattle, obviously they start the game off. Rashid Shaheed, returns the kick return for a touchdown, and really they didn't look back from then. And Sam Darnold, he was efficient. He didn't have to do too much. So Kenneth Walker, 3 touchdowns. He had 119 yards rushing. They did lose Zach Charbonnet, though, for the season. He tore his ACL in that game. So he was their goal line guy. That could be a big loss for a Rams team that has a very good defensive line. Charbonnet, even though Kenneth Walker, great running back, but Charbonnet is a guy that was their red zone guy. He's scored a bunch of touchdowns for them this year. Could be interesting to see. I think this game is going to be awesome.
Yeah, I hope so.
I can't wait. I think the Rams, the first time, they really had that game in the bag, and to me, they looked like the better team for the majority of that game. I think that most Rams fans think their team, I think Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford, they felt like they gave that game away. I am a little biased because I predicted them to win the Super Bowl before the playoffs. But give me the Rams to win a close one, 27-24 on another walk-off field goal. I think Matthew Stafford, I think this has just kind of been his year. I think Puka bounces back in a big way. And Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford, they find themselves in the Super Bowl versus the Patriots. How do you think, Jett?
Yeah, I think you know what you're talking about because I think the Rams are going to come away with this one. It's kind of, I want to say it's on Sam Darnold, but I kind of feel the Seahawks are going to win this one. It's going to come down to special teams.
Yeah.
Potentially returning a kick or defense getting a stupid score, a pick six, something to flip the game like that and really swing momentum and maybe get the offense a double score or something like that. I just don't see Sam Darnold outplaying Matt Stafford, and Matt Stafford's just so good. And every time I see him throw the football, it's just so pretty, dude. So I feel like the Rams are going to come away with this one. It'll be close though. Like you said, probably a walk-off field goal.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game, and make sure to tune in to both of those games on Sunday. But that'll kind of wrap things up here in the Miller Waldrop Studios. Fans, make sure to continue to follow, like, or subscribe wherever you're seeing our content with the Guns Blazin podcast or Campus Live TTU. We appreciate all of y'all's support, and once again, we just want to thank our sponsors with Roof Masters, with JSI Services, and the Exceptional Community Hospital for the Guns Blazin podcast. Jett, you got anything else to add on?
No, it should be some good football, man.
Yeah, it should be some great football, some great college basketball. And once again, we just want to thank y'all for the support. And remember, fans, Campus Live is your one-stop news source for all things Texas Tech and Lubbock. Wreck 'em.
From Miller Waldrop Studios, this is Campus Live.